I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Just prior to this meeting, the board had a closed session, and I've got quite a few things to report out. On item 2.1, upon motion of Board Member Hall, seconded by Board Member Franz, we approved a notice of rejection of claim, and that vote was 5-0. On item number 2.2, on motion of Board Member Kochar, seconded by Board Member Franz, the board adopted resolution number 2416, I think I can read it already. A resolution of release of temporary certificated employees, and that vote was 5-0. On item 2.3, upon motion by Board Member Hall, seconded by Board Member Kochar, the board took action to release a probationary classified employee prior to the conclusion of the probationary period, and that vote was 5-0. On item 2.4, upon motion of Board Member Kochar, seconded by Board Member Hall, the board took action to release a probationary classified employee prior to the conclusion of the probationary period, and that vote was 5-0. Item 2.5, upon motion Board Member Hall, seconded by Board Member Coleman, the board took action to suspend a permanent classified employee for 1 day on a vote of 5-0. And finally, on item 2.6, upon motion of Board Member Hall, second Board Member Coleman, the board approved the settlement agreement in case number 2024090603. With that, we will move on to our announcement of meeting protocols. Thank you all for being here. We encourage the public to participate during the meeting. We do request that you do it civilly and with the use of courteous language. The board does not condone the use of profanity, vulgar language, gestures, or any other inappropriate behavior, including personal attacks or threats directed towards any meeting participant and/or district employee. You'll have an opportunity to speak to the board for each item on the agenda, and also if you have something to speak to us that's not on the agenda, you can speak during public comment, which is item 4.5. If you would please fill out a speaker card so I don't forget to call on you, that would be great. If we have less than 10 members of the public who wish to comment on an agenda or non-agenda item, the time limit for each speaker will be 3 minutes. If we have 10 or more members of the public commenting on an agenda or non-agenda item, the time limit for each public comment will be 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds. If you have a complaint about a specific employee or employees of the district, those complaints should be made to the employee's immediate supervisor or the school site principal as outlined in our board policies and administrative regulations. And just as a reminder that we audio and video record these meetings, and it will be archived, although we're not live streaming right now until we get our live stream worked out in the new building. With that, we will now move on to our recognition and presentations. Our first item is recognition of Board Member Carrie Kochar. Carrie. Thank you very much for your service on the board. We have this as a small token of our appreciation for your time. Thank you very much.
I just want to thank you, Carrie, for jumping in and being so committed to your responsibilities on the board. Even though you knew it would be for a short amount of time, you still were 100% committed, and you've really added a lot of value. So thank you so very much.
I'll echo that and say I appreciate just being willing to serve. I know it can be challenging, and I am happy I fought for you, and I just appreciate your passion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us and being here as just another our cabinet members. I want to thank you for the time you've spent, the care and concern that you have for each of the issues that have come up, and just your professionalism, the depth of knowledge. I enjoyed every minute of it. You know, I love education. I love diving into everything that we do, all the time spent, even though my husband sometimes complains. But I truly do love it. It's been fantastic, and it's an honor to work with this district. I appreciate it.
Just a reminder, tonight you can talk as long as you want on agenda items, starting next week.
Don't worry, I'll send you my email.
Okay, with that, I'm going to ask the board to join me in front of the dais as we move to our next item, which is our 2024 AP School Honor Roll presentation.
All right, Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure to share the College Board's annual recognition for high schools in America whose advanced placement programs are delivering results for students while broadening access. And as you all know, our AP courses are led through the College Board, and it is a national program. So tonight we're going to be recognizing our schools who have achieved the AP School Honor Roll recipient status based on criteria that reflect a commitment to increasing college-going culture, providing opportunities for students to earn college credit, and maximizing college readiness. So just briefly, for a school to be recognized on the AP School Honor Roll in America in any given year, it must meet each of the following criteria for their students in the most recent graduating class, which would of course be our senior cohort of class of 2024. These criteria are anchored in research-based relationships between AP and college outcomes, again including college culture, where 40% or more of the graduating cohort took at least one AP exam during high school. Opportunities for students to earn college credit, where 25% or more of the graduating cohort scored a 3 or higher on at least one AP exam. And college optimization, where 2% or more of the graduating cohort took 5 or more AP exams during high school. At least one of those exams must have been taken in their 9th or 10th grade year, so that students are spreading their AP experience across grades rather than feeling disproportionate pressure in any single year. Additionally, the College Board is recognizing our schools in America with an AP Access Award, which honors schools that demonstrate a clear and effective commitment to access and opportunity for advanced coursework. Schools earn the additional award if the percentage of AP exam takers who are underrepresented and or low-income students mirrors the school's overall underrepresented demographics. It's my joy to share with you that we have 6 high schools in Rosewood Joint Union High School District who have made the National College Board's AP Honor Roll this year, which is incredible given the high standards that's set forth by the College Board. So the first one that we would like to recognize is Roseville High School, who's earned a bronze recognition on the honor roll with 40% of its graduating class experiencing one AP course before graduation. 26% of the graduating class earned a college credit by earning an AP exam score of 3 or higher, and 10% of the graduating class of 24 took a total of 5 or more AP exams. Congratulations to Ashley and Roseville High School. Our second high school we'd like to honor is Oakmont High School. Oakmont High School earned a bronze recognition on the National Honor Roll with 43% of its graduating class of 24 experiencing one AP course before graduation. 31% of the graduating class of 24 earned college credit by earning an AP exam of 3 or higher, and 8% of the graduating class of 24 took a total of 5 or more AP exams in the 9th or 10th grade. Congratulations, Mark, and Oakmont High School. Our next school we'd like to honor is Antelope High School. Antelope earned a bronze recognition on the National Honor Roll with 43% of its graduating class experiencing one AP course before graduation. 31% of the graduating class earning college credit by earning a 3 or higher on at least one of their exams, and 9% of the graduating class taking a total of 5 or more AP exams. Congratulations, Emily. As mentioned, Emma will also earn the AP Access Award, so congratulations. Our next high school, Wood Creek High School, earned a silver recognition honor roll with 50% of its graduating class experiencing one AP course before graduation, 37% of its graduating class earning an AP score of 3 or higher, and 14% of the graduating class taking a total of 5 or more AP exams. Wood Creek also earned the AP Access Award. Congratulations to Anna Wood Creek. West Park High School earned a gold recognition in the honor roll with 66% of its graduating class experiencing one AP course before graduation, 43% of their graduating class earning a 3 or higher on one of their AP exams, and then 17% of their graduating class took a total of 5 or more AP exams. West Park also earned the AP Access Award. Congratulations to Becky and West Park. And finally, Granite Bay High School earned a gold recognition on the honor roll with 69% of its graduating class experiencing one AP course before graduation, 56% of their graduating class earned a college credit by scoring a 3 or higher on at least one of their exams, and 30% of the graduating cohort took a total of 5 or more AP exams. Granite Bay also earned the AP Access Award. Congratulations to the
Thank you. All right. Our next item, Carrie, I meant to ask you this, but since it's your last meeting, would you like to read our board expectations?
Sure, why not?
Sorry, I should have given you warning.
Okay, the Roosevelt Joy Union High School District Board Expectations. Prepare all students for life, college, and career. High quality academic opportunities for all students. Support student academic success. Engage in partnership with families and the community. The school is welcoming, safe environment that serves as the center of student learning, activities, athletics, and performing arts. Promote a sense of community in our schools and the surrounding areas. Utilize effective governance and business practices. Remain open, transparent, and accountable to the community. Serve as an employer of choice with the highest quality teachers and staff.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move into our board reports. And Marla, would you like to start? And we'll work our way down this way.
We had a finance committee meeting today, and where we received our annual initial.
Along with that, this board report.
Oh, yes, I did that. I'll just share, I had, instead of a long list, I had 2 opportunities since our last meeting where I witnessed our students exhibiting just an amazing leadership and desire to give back and educate the community and improve their schools. The first was in a visit to Antelope High School. I was able to sit in on a planning meeting for the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, and it was led by 2 of the Black Student Union officers. And it's this coming Thursday, correct? And I just appreciate being a part of that. And I was just a fly on the wall and watched them plan and their desire to bring in speakers and how to just do everything, working with the community, and I just appreciated being a part of that. And I value that these students are just stepping up and making their way in that way. And then I also attended the Placer County Youth Commission up near Antelope. And we were introduced to their commissioners and their current projects, which were addressing mental health and vaping concerns. I was able to speak with a couple students from Granite Bay and Wood Creek. I think we also have a few other schools represented in that, but that's who I spoke with. And I think when we start talking about the vaping issues again, I have some names that we should maybe reach out to that group and to see how we can partner with them and how they can help us as well. So I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Okay, I'm just gonna highlight just a couple of items myself. I had a site visit at Wood Creek High School, which I really enjoyed. That's my home high school, Go Creek. And we enjoyed talking with Principal Bell about English learners and long-term English learners and how Wood Creek is supporting these students and possibly how we can partner with our feeder districts to help these students have greater success. We also visited an English learner classroom that was co-taught by Mr. Becker and Ms. Unia, and there was at least 6 different languages being spoken in that classroom. So it was really neat. I always enjoy seeing those students working together and really supporting and helping each other in their English learning. We jumped into a freshman English class and saw some co-teaching, and it was Monique Renalter and Jeannie Gonzalez, and those two just bounced off each other. It was really instructive for me to see how they just bounced off each other in their teaching in that classroom, so I really enjoyed that. And we dropped into a meeting of the school guidance counselors as they discussed how to best help the seniors as they work on the college application process. And so that was great to see their hard work as they were considering the future of the students and how to best help them. And then I really enjoyed spending a beautiful morning at Oakmont for the Unified Sports soccer event there. It was just such a fun day, so absolutely loved that. And then this morning I popped into the GSA Summit that was held at Antelope High School for a little bit. I met some students as well as staff, and my goal there was to get to know people and give them a chance to meet me, and I think that those goals were met.
Wonderful. So I had 2 items since the last board meeting, only 2. First was I went to the Placer County Office of Education ribbon cutting on their new building in Rockland, which was really convenient because it's literally next door to where I work. And then, of course, the ribbon cutting for this building, which I know many of you were at. It was wonderful to be there. Other than that, I was too busy losing an election to do anything else. So, you guys have stuck with me for 2 more years. So I'll pass it on to you.
I think of it as you won 2 more years with us.
That's right. So we both sort of.
Yeah.
All winners.
We're all winners.
Off to you.
All right, I attended those ribbon cuttings as well, which was really nice to see the new district office, having it local here in Rockland. And it feels like it's been a long time, but I was also out at Wood Creek High School, which feels like months ago, but it was only weeks ago. And we just had a fun day. We popped into the yearbook class where it happened to be a day where the students were kind of taking the lead on, various activities, and the yearbook class is going for an award. I forget the name of the award that, it's okay, I should, it's okay. I didn't even know that a yearbook class or team could win an award, so that was really all informative. For me, we got to see some of the past yearbooks, which really were like works of art compared to the yearbook of my class of 1994. And then we popped to, it wasn't okay. We popped into Unified Sports as well, which was really fun to watch. And then the dance class, actually, it was more practicing for the Mean Girls performance. They were doing their dance number, and they had a Wood Creek alumni who returns every once in a while and teaches components of the dance numbers, and so that was really fun. And then I got to pop into Roseville High last week. We talked about a few of the topics on the agenda later tonight, and just learning more about what's going on at Roseville High, and I'll be popping into Granite Bay High School next week. So I'm excited about that. That was about it. Just living life. Getting an election.
All right.
So, the ribbon cutting, was it last week? Last week was the ribbon cutting, week before, I think last week? And I get blurs. It was amazing. It was fantastic to see the Oakmont band out there performing, and I know Kim arranged for the Antelope cheerleaders to come out. They just did a great job. There was so much support, and obviously this building is beautiful, so it was great to be a part of that. Also, I was able to attend West Park IM3 parent meeting, which, you know, my heart is in math, and it was fantastic to see teachers, district staff, principals come together, or principals and site administrators, just come together with the care and concern for our students, and also so many parents that were there. Just really honest conversations and solutions. Everyone coming together and working together to help our students out. It was fantastic to see that, and I know that that growth is going to continue, so it's wonderful. And then also last Friday, I had the pleasure of attending the Wood Creek Professional Development Day and Antelope, and I have to say that Ms. Bell and her admin team did a wonderful job celebrating Wood Creek's fall successes with her staff. She's such a warm and intentional leader. Just watching her in front of her staff is just, it's like a great teacher in front of their class. It just brings everyone together. It's so warm, it's intentional, and it's real. And that is the vibe that I get at the entire campus. So that was really nice to see. And also, we were able to, Ms. Karos and I were able to step into one of the, what do they call it? The site, like the polling, I don't know, one of the separate little groups of teachers. The conversations that these teachers are having about building thinking classrooms is fantastic. And what I hear from students and parents across the district, you can tell our teachers really are embracing this. I don't know that I've ever worked in a district before where so many staff members are on board with a strategy and working on intentionality for improving instruction. It is amazing to see. I'm so proud of our teachers, I'm so proud of our administrators, our district staff. It's phenomenal, and I know nothing gets better overnight. It's a lot of hard work, and it's gonna be a work in progress, but it's really nice to see, and I'm proud to be a part of that. That's all I have.
Thank you. And moving right on down to our student board members.
At Antelope High School, our unified sports team was selected as a national banner school, which only 207 schools in the country have the national banner. And we are also selected as one of 33 as an ESPN honor roll school, which is very exciting, especially for how much work Ms. Allheiser has put into this program at our school. Today we hosted the District GSA Summit in our library, where teachers and students from our district were all able to gather together. Last Wednesday, we held the PLTW Showcase, where educators from all around came to learn from our amazing PLTW programs at Antelope High School. Tomorrow, we will be hosting our Performing Arts Showcase, where middle schoolers come to visit to learn all about our performing arts in our school. Our drama program show is kicking off this week, where there will be one of the first high schools in the country putting on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. This Thursday, our BSU Club Black Student Union will be hosting our Ruby Bridges Walk, where we are going to walk to school together to honor Ruby Bridges' courage and role in the civil rights movement and to promote inclusivity. And lastly, this Friday, we'll be hosting the Link Crew Conference, where schools from all over California come together to learn and develop their leadership skills. Thank you.
There we go. All right, good evening, everyone. It's good to be back after quite some time. Since our last meeting in September, I'm happy to report our homecoming was a huge success. We had lots of student participation, spirit, and even some cameos of Elvis and Spider-Man. The biggest takeaway I have that I believe was the most shocking to me in the entirety of ASB was how many people really enjoyed the outdoor dance on the football field. I'd like to give props, of course, to our activities director, Mr. Kentrich, for making that happen, because he is the one who advocated that for a very long time in his career as an activities director, and it did not disappoint, so big shout out to him. As of now, we're running our canned food drive. Our Panther Athletic Council is hosting a Winter Sports Summit, actually right now as we speak, and our Beauty and the Beast production kicks off this Thursday, which is looking to be phenomenal based on the previews that were shown today. And personally, my favorite time of the year, not just because of the holidays, it's time for playoff football. We're set to be playing Merced at our place this Friday, and it's been a while since we've had a home game, so we're expecting a good turnout for this team. Additionally, the playoffs regarding football, I also want to give out a huge shout out to the other fall sports that made playoffs. I don't have to mention them individually because all of them made the playoffs. So great job to our fall athletes. We're all very proud of you. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to our superintendent and cabinet reports.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to add on a little bit to the unified sports at Antelope, and really just a huge thanks. So proud of Hayden, Jordan Martinez as the AD, and then Principal Cutts and their work of just running wild and really blowing up this unified sports thing in our district, and then now taking it to a national level. Only one of 5 schools in the state got a national banner, and we're the only in Northern California. And we're only one of 33 schools in all of North America who are going to be recognized on ESPN for their honor roll. So November 15th, this Friday, Antelope will be highlighted on ESPN Sports Center for this work. So again, what Hayden's doing over there and taking this and just expanding it, and all of our schools for that matter, it's an application process, and I'm sure if all of ours apply, they're going to be in the same situation, because it is so significant and meaningful to our kids. Our kids love it, and what it does to that school community is remarkable. So I'm just very proud of that recognition, and telling everybody, all my state CIF people, did you get one of these? No? Oh, okay. We did. And so, great job. And as you heard a little bit, right now is extracurricular and co-curricular craziness. We've got playoffs, section championships, NorCal championships have started. All of our schools have these huge drama productions, which will be followed up by dance shows. Our marching bands have gone every single weekend, every weekend pretty much, marching band in the last month or so. It's been pretty crazy. Oakmont, they've been at Sac State, West Park. I mean, it's just a frenzy of activity. And what's really cool about that is that's what really drives school communities. It's all these extra things that make that connection back for the students, that makes the whole experience relevant. It's where they find their pride. It's where individuals get their own Friday night lights, so to speak, be it on a stage, be it on a field. And it's just really cool to see. So it just amazes me to see when I start looking this time of year, all the things going on. From our girls golf that just played today, in NorCal championships, we had section finals this past weekend, and all of our schools are participating and successful. Oakmont hosted their first playoff football game in 22 years and won handily. And so there's just a lot of cool stuff going on that really resonates in this community. And so for our principals who having to be at all of these this time of year, bless your hearts for doing that. I know it's a busy time, but again, from our coaches to our performing arts directors and everybody in between, it's just a great time of year, and what you do for kids is truly special, and we're seeing it in all of our recognition and success. So that's all I have.
Nothing from Joe. Great report. Brad?
Pressure, Joe. I know later on we are going to look at a resolution that honors our district's veterans, but I think it's important that we also recognize Principal Sarin and her staff at Roseville High School for hosting a veterans celebration of sorts, a pancake breakfast last Friday with many veterans from the community coming, school staff there to recognize them as well. And then there was a rally with performances from dance and from the band, and also Mayor-elect Krista Bernasconi was the guest speaker, talking about the importance and what it means to be a veteran. So I thought it was second annual, I thought it was well attended, and I think your staff did a wonderful job. So thank you.
No report.
Wonderful report.
No report.
Wonderful report. Look at that. All right. We'll now move on to committee reports. Marlo.
Oh, I'd love to say something about that. Okay, Heidi and I attended the Finance Committee meeting just before this, our closed session earlier today, and we received our annual audit. We're doing great. So we met all requirements, laws, and regulations of state programs. We only had a small hiccup, which was similar to last year, but last year's was much bigger, where we were not handling some of the independent long-term agreements properly. We were getting the right signatures, which then affects the ADA. Most of that has been addressed, but we still received a few. If I was told that the signature or a date was wrong, you'd get dinged. So the dollar amount was minuscule and inconsequential. So good marks.
We were supposed to have the board policy committee meeting, but unfortunately I hurt my back and could barely walk, so we had to cancel it. So you will see that we will have some board discussion on some policies, most likely before we get to our next policy committee meeting, because we'll be setting that committee up at our next organizational meeting, so things are a little behind. I apologize for that, but Mr. Becker was with me when something happened. When he came into my office, I was fine, but by the time he left, I couldn't walk. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but it was rough.
So
So
blame that on Andrew Tag.
yeah, so we'll see how things are for the next time around. Committee report? Oh, okay.
Okay, so we actually met as SILT. We had a SILT meeting where we had a lot of course outlines were reviewed. New supplemental materials requests came forward from Megan Hofflick from Granite Bay for leadership classes. And I just appreciate the amount of time that it takes to go through all of those course outlines and to make sure that we're aligning our curriculum across the district and collaborating for the best results. And so good work going forward there. And I got to go to an athletic director meeting where I felt really cool to be with everybody there. And I really wanted to highlight the student survey. I learned about a survey that all of the athletic directors came together at the beginning of the year. They came up with 21 questions that are given to the students as they're finishing their team sport. And what I was impressed with in going through these questions of the survey was it indicated to me what the real purpose, the real root purpose of the sports is in our district amongst all of our athletic directors, which I appreciated. And I'll just highlight a couple of those. The head coach consistently encouraged us to make good decisions about our personal health, drugs, alcohol, nicotine, nutrition, sleep, self-care. The head coach consistently encouraged us to make good decisions about our social health, behavior, relationships, social media, hazing, bullying. The head coach emphasized safety, heat, air quality, hydration, and safe play. Overall, I had fun this year, my skill level improved, and I feel like participating in this sport transformed my life for the better through positive relationships, important life lessons, and personal growth beyond the playing field. So those were just a few of those highlights, but I felt like it really showed the direction of that our athletic directors are giving to our coaches.
Wonderful, thank you. And now, the Natalie report. Oh, hello, Natalie.
Hi.
Don't forget to push the button on there. Gotta push it harder. Push and hold. Come on. There you go. Saw you mine.
I teach technology. Good evening. It's been over a month since I've seen you, and you guys still look great, so thank you for showering daily. Carrie, thank you so much for your time. And I always tell people, like, actions speak louder than words. When people take on responsibilities, and we always hear this, but we know with some certain people, it's like they say things, but when you were appointed, you really jumped in, and we saw you and you advocated, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for everything that you've done. So it's been a pleasure. My report might come across as harsh, and it's not meant to be, because I've heard a lot of positive things, and unfortunately, I will say one positive. It's really great to see once a month at these meetings. It's fantastic. Not that two are not that great, but it just one a month is fantastic. I have two asks. As we progress, we hear about the great things that are happening, and as things shift, we see people retire and move in positions, and positions change. Communication, I always say, could be clear. And I know sometimes with that, it's like how does communication how can you clear it up? And I sit through these meetings, so I hear a lot of things, and I hear directives that come through, and they go to the district office. However, I feel currently there might be a disconnect of what's actually presented there and how it trickles down. As teachers, we went through all of the course reviews last year, and also going through all that, so we're kind of catching up with that. We have Canvas coming in, we have building thinking classrooms with that. So with all of these shifting, is if we don't hear actual communication in what direction that we're going from the district down, to filter out to the staff, a lot of times we get hung up. And I know today you're gonna hear the thing with the PE, for example. It's like, I understand we're called these meetings to sit down. And we know that you have a direction that you wanna go with this. And I ask that you respect our time, and sometimes there's things like, we're gonna offer this in the meeting so we know where we're going, versus having to show up in the meeting and realize, oh, where did that come from? And I don't wanna stepstone on this, but just kind of like, I think we need to filter out where we're going. Because we know, I'm all about moving progressive, but if you don't communicate the thoughts, it kind of falls, and if we don't know why we're doing something, it's tough. With that, we hear about building things in classrooms. People are on board. Unfortunately, that is one tool in our tool belt. I sit through these meetings and I hear about the DNF rates. At sites, we don't always get exactly what their focus is on, but we know that because of your CAS scores and what you're seeing, that's kind of what we're focusing on. Again, not always communicating forward with our actual goal. But with that, is every site is different. What can we control? High school students. We cannot control what happened in middle school. So when you're thinking about this coming in, and if we're looking at math in specific, okay, if they're coming in with behind standards where they're at, we can't control that. Are we meeting every site with the resources they need? Because as a district, and the board partner says, you are here to provide resources for every site, and every site looks very differently. Are we keeping in touch with each site to ask for the same resources that somebody else needs? Because it might be different. If Granite Bay doesn't need it, but Antelope does because their I-1 numbers are lower, are we offering these resources? You saw the projections with the state funding, numbers are positive versus negative. Are we actually using that money to go back to the resources inside the classroom? Because we're here for every single student. And I just ask we work with the communication to filter this down and pay attention and provide the resources that we can use in the classroom to help move our goals forward.
Thank you, Natalie. And now we move on to public comment. I have one card. Does anyone else like to speak? Christina, you're up. It doesn't tip, but it'll hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I'm noticing that the district is updating their website and the school sites, and just thank you. It's becoming easier to follow, there's more consistency, the transparency, so just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are now moving on to the consent agenda. We have one request to pull item 6.13. We have a motion on the remainder of the consent agenda.
I would make a motion to approve consent agenda minus 3.
All right, we have a motion from Heidi. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We're gonna do roll call starting at this end.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Carrie?
I'm sorry, I don't see 6. Did you mean 6.3?
6.13.
Oh, 1.3. 1.3 meaning 13.
Yes.
That was like a 1 with a substance.
Is that a yes then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We will now move right into that item,
Okay.
6.13.
I just had a few clarifying questions, because I know it was a small typo, but I think we can fix. Okay, so 2, this grading policy will only be, just for clarification, for dwelling classes taught on campus. So I think what originally confused me when I was reading the word policy versus the regulation is the word policy made it clear that it was only for classes taught in Roseville Joint Union High School District, but the regulation only says it'll apply to dual enrollment courses if the course is on the IGECT list, which I had no idea what that was. Which then made me wonder, so I'm assuming that's just a list that is an agreement with Sierra College.
That is a website that highlights the dual enrollment courses that are transferable to a CSU campus or a UC campus, and I can send you the link as well.
Okay. I just don't want any ambiguity over kids going to Sierra College during the summer and then having an expectation that when they transfer it back, it will be grade up. So I don't know if we,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm just making a request that I'd like to add on to
that paragraph where it says criteria for courses with weighted grades, and then just add as well and taught on an RJUHSD campus. I just want it to be really clear.
And that was in BP 5121 or 5121?
5121.7, the AR.
And if I could jump in, maybe putting the website address next to the IGEHC so that it's clear, it's almost a follow.
Sure, we can do that.
Right, because and actually now that you say if the students are only looking at that website and they see a course and say, hey, we can take it, I'm gonna do it in summer, so I think, so I'm making that recall, that will be part of my motion. And then in that first section, the same section, the courses, criteria for courses with weighted grades, we did an and in between courses and specified for courses. It's courses designated as advanced placement, international baccalaureate courses, and specified dual enrollment courses.
We'll add the word and.
Okay. And then my last question is, how are we rolling this out? Are we grandfathering it in? Are we starting with the freshmen next year?
Right, so in having conversations with staff as well as our site administrators, we believe it's fair, and I know we've had some conversations as well, Marla, we believe it's fair to roll out next academic year, clean and fresh at the start of the school year for fall of 2025-26 for all classes. So it wouldn't just be for freshmen, it would be for all classes.
So,
When I say class, maybe
oh, okay.
freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
Okay,
For all
so are you accounting for fairness within the same cohort of class? So if you have someone who's a junior right now who takes dual enrollment stats, and then next year they have someone in that same class who's now a senior take dual enrollment statistics, and they get a bump, but the junior doesn't?
Yeah, that is correct,
Okay,
because the board policy would be enacted if the board approved it tonight for operationalization fall of 2025.
So you're creating some inequity in class ranks and GPA.
Yeah, I think we would want to pull some data to see if, how many students that would impact. But we would obviously communicate very clearly with our families. If the board should pass this policy, that it would be enacted fall of 25.
Okay, well, I don't agree with inequality within cohorts. So, but that's not the board. I agree with the policy. I don't agree with how you're proposing to enact it. So that's kind of a difference.
Did I miss why we're waiting till fall versus January?
No, you didn't. It's because it would be, first of all, we haven't communicated to our families that dual enrollment this term would give students a dual enrollment grade bump. And because we didn't do so, potentially students may have taken other courses, like an advanced placement course, for example. And had they known this option existed for them, they may have chosen to take a DE course over an AP course, because as we all know, an AP course gives students that additional pressure that AP exam may.
Okay, that makes sense, thank you.
Can I add another question there? So then, if I'm not mistaken, it would also, if you opened it up in January, then, the option to wait, that everyone's already chosen their classes for the fall, or for the spring. So that would definitely create some last minute chaos and making changes for the spring semester.
That's correct.
Any other questions, or student board members, do you have any questions on this?
Well, just, I guess this is maybe Marla, and two, what would be a way to create equity? Is there a path to creating equity within that particular class? How would that go? And why not do that?
Well, I don't want to speak for you. Well, we've had conversations, and I did not know how you were going to answer this tonight, so.
Yeah.
And so one option was to just begin it incoming freshmen next year, just begin with a new class and allow freshmen going forward to receive a grade bump with dual enrollment. And then all of our other students would just continue with dual enrollment, not having a grade bump. But then that's equitable with the cohorts, because some kids might have taken a dual enrollment course a different calendar year. And it's not the other option would be to grandfather everything in. But what may not be fair in that case is, and this is where we talked about whether it would actually affect anyone, let's say in the top 20 at each school, because you do have students who have been very laser focused and taking all APs, avoiding dual enrollment because they know it's not a grade bump, and then suddenly we award grade bumps to all these dual enrollment kids or classes, and that might shift. That will shift their GPA and potentially change their class rank. In most cases, it doesn't probably affect where they go to college at all, but it's a perception. Yes.
And I can jump in, because I think we also have to be careful that we don't create sort of a equal protection equity issue if you have two people from different cohort taking the same class at the same time, and one gets a grade bump and the other one doesn't because they just happen to be on one side of the cohort. So the cohort model solves one problem but creates another problem as well.
And that's what we talked about is if we roll again freshman year next year, you have 3 years of kids sitting in the same class saying, why am I doing the same work if you're getting a grade bump? When Granite Bay, when they removed their honors classes, they were doing that, but they slowly, I'm not saying the right word, they transitioned those honors classes out where some of the kids were receiving the grade bumps and others weren't, and that's just how they did it, and they got rid of, I think, the Spanish 4 honors and the Calc, I think, pre-Calc. So it's messy. It's messy.
The other thing to know, and I know you might remember this, Marla, is many of our dual enrollment courses are actually offered for the upper class grades, so 11th and 12th grades. So if we were, I mean, there's, I think, any which way we enact or operationalize the policy, I think to your point, Pete, some group of students are going to feel slighted that they didn't receive that bumping opportunity. But if we only enacted or operationalized it for freshmen, fall of 2025, many sophomores entering the 10th grade year or juniors entering the 11th grade year may for the first time be able to take DE classes. And we may feel a lot of feelings that they're not part of that DE grade bump.
Yeah, and I would say the other reality is some of our schools are more DE than AP. And so you have a lot of kids who are not going to be competitively situated in the college application game. The flip side to that is all these kids are getting the bump no matter what when they apply to college, getting it or not, they get the bump. So their GPAs are going to go up no matter what when they apply. If we give a grade bump or not, in California they give them a weighted grade anyways. So all of our kids' GPAs go up. Talking to the counselors who are really tied to the college game, I mean, definitely the recommendation was do not do it mid-year because you'll have chaos on your hands with class ranks at that point. But their suggestion was you just start clean next year. The second suggestion was you start, similar to what you were saying, Mom, but you go freshmen, sophomores, because so few sophomores take dual enrollment. And if there's still plenty of time for kids to bulk up AP, IB, or dual enrollment. But you're right, we would lose some kids, especially at our schools who have more kids going DE than AP. It really sets them back in their competitive market of college applications as well. So I mean, it'll be a little messy no matter what we do. It'll benefit the most the sooner we start it. Like I said, there might be something the first year. So if it wasn't a clean slate next year, I would say then next year, starting with next year's juniors. would be able to. That's the vast majority of our juniors, but we'll start the dual enrollment game. Again, any of the other kids that are, most sophomores in this game are AP World or AP type courses like that. They're not doing dual enrollment at this point. So I would say either everybody all next year, or start with next year's juniors and let it roll in. But
I think one of the things we have to be conscious of is the number of students that can potentially be impacted, and I think going to a cohort model will impact more students negatively than doing a beginning of next year, because even those students who are juniors this year who may have already taken a dual enrollment course, they still have the ability to take dual enrollment next year, get a break for those courses, so they have an ability to still take advantage of the program, albeit for a shorter period of time, only 2 semesters, versus the other way, there's no makeup period. So
I'm speaking more to, and okay, and I realize grant day is a little different, and it's a little bit more focused on class rank and far more competitive on the GPA. So I'm not advocating the idea that a junior still has time to take dual enrollment. That's fine, but it's more of when if there's a junior or even a sophomore who took a dual enrollment class and didn't get the bump, but then they have a peer who now next year gets to take the same class and get the bump. Now they have an advantage of their GPA is now potentially higher because they received the bump where the same cohort did. That's what I don't like.
And I agree, although I think that is a much smaller segment of our overall population than the number of students impacted if we go a cohort model. Because then you're talking about students across all sites and multiple years of students being impacted. So
What do you mean by cohort model? When you say do a cohort model, what are you referring to?
that's what I thought you said, when you start with freshmen, you start with a new cohort of people being able to do this, and excluding the others, you're holding back large number of students who are not eligible to take a dual enrollment.
And that wasn't necessarily my approach. I was just trying, it was more of how do we do it equitably? That's all. That would be one way. That was not, when I was chatting with you, that was not my, but.
So I think we as a board have to make a decision on which impact, students are going to be impacted either way, and it's up to us to decide as a board which impact is least objectionable or more favorable, depending on how you
Can
look
I
at
ask you
it.
a question? So the board policy itself has there's nothing in here about how we're implementing. So is that a separate issue? Or do we agree that we want to give dual enrollment classes bump? And then we have a separate issue, which, not that I'm trying to take away any of our influence, but which is almost more of an AR, or it's an administrative decision of how they're implementing.
Well, yes and no, the board,
Can we separate it though? Or is,
the action in front of us is to approve these, but the board can give direction on its preference for implementation. And so, and we can do that now, or we can let staff come back at a later time after they've thought about it. But obviously, there's more concerns about the direction, and I do think that is something that, because of its impact across multiple sites, and it's a policy that we are approving, guiding the superintendent's implementation, I think is within our purview.
can we separate it out? I'm always I'm just trying to think.
Well, they are separate actions,
Okay,
so
okay, because.
the action on the
website,
agenda
yes.
today, the only thing we can vote on that's binding is what's in front of us. But the board can, with 3 or more members' consensus, give direction for implementation. So there are 2 items within.
I'll work with that.
So maybe we can tackle the policies as presented first, which, if I heard correctly and I remember far enough back, there was the adding of the word "and" in between IB and dual enrollment courses, and the adding the website to IGETC, and I believe there was one other change.
And then also specifying that these courses are taught on campus.
Right. So So those would be the three items that we're looking at. Okay. Would you like to make a motion about that?
I would love to make a motion to approve with those 3 additions.
Okay, and just to clarify, it's approving the BPs and ARs presented with those 3 amendments.
Yes.
And Kim, do you have those amendments clearly? Okay, so just on that portion, do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the policy? All in favor signify by saying aye. Yeah, that's, you said aye.
I said aye.
So that's unanimous,
Thanks
okay.
for checking.
So, I looked over right after you said, so now, would we as a board like to give some direction now, or would we like to have staff come back with some recommendations? This is up to us.
I think it's important to move forward with this now. Obviously, the counselors have been involved, we've had this discussion. One way or another, I think it's important to roll it out, be clear in the communication, so everybody can prepare for the next cycle of choosing courses. So to sit on it, you never know what's gonna come up, and I would hate for it to roll into the holidays. Next thing you know, it's February, and now the schools have already chosen they've already like worked through fall classes. I mean, that's just, I really think we need to make a decision and move forward. And if it doesn't work, if there happens to be problems, then, sometimes things get a little messy, and we're just gonna have to work our way through that. That's the reality.
So I think, how about we do a straw poll, and I just ask each person their preference, and that will be, John can then take that into consideration as he implements. Because we can't actually take a vote.
Sure.
It's a
I
consensus.
don't think we should implement in any way that puts I'll use the word co-op, but the peers or people in the same cohort class, graduating class, at a disadvantage because we're allowing some kids to get a bump and other kids not for the same class intake.
So the choice is between implementing across the board starting next year, or starting with,
Or grandfathering it in.
but I only have 3 choices on here.
Why not? Well.
Because there's 5 of us, so the chances
Wait, what would
is.
you mean by grandfathering in? Grandfather what, exactly?
Retroactively.
Retroactively giving grade bumps to kids who take dual enrollment classes.
So that means that this year's seniors, we would go back and look at freshman, sophomore, junior year, did they have any dual
Yes.
enrollment classes, and we would give them bumps?
Yes. That would be another option.
Or you start with next year, so it'd be this year's current juniors.
Yeah, we were just talking about the grandfather. I
And
have-
if you grandfather in there are current juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. You do seniors, you're gonna have huge implications on applications already in. And so that, you're gonna have to do a lot of addendums to your applications, as well as now you're gonna possibly really talk about the class rank. You're gonna throw things way off where kids are now, they thought they were in one position and they won't.
And actually, the seniors aren't the issue, because they've all had equal opportunity to take dual enrollment. I mean, there won't be, it's not like next year someone else in that class is taking dual enrollment. So I don't care how it's implemented, I just want it to be equal in the classes.
I don't think it's ever going to be equal.
But it
That's
could
the
be,
problem.
but it could be.
I don't think we can.
Can I ask, is it possible to grandfather in? Is that a reality, or what does that entail? I mean, it sounds like seems like that could be a way to make it equitable, but is that
Well, Carrie's question was a good one. So what do you mean by grandfathering? If you mean grandfathering all the students in existence in our school who have ever taken PE classes as far back as their freshman year, it absolutely will affect rank. And that will cause a lot of noise in the system.
I'm not supportive of any retroactive activity. I think it opens up cans of worms that are huge. There are kids that would say, had I known that, I would have chose that instead of AP, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to feel this. I don't think that, I think it's a completely different situation than when we attritioned out some honors courses, because that was done by attrition. So I personally would not be in favor of any retroactive application. So let's do this. We have 3 options, and we'll do a straw poll. And if we don't come up with 3, then we'll get rid of the lowest one, and we'll go. And if we don't come to consensus, then John, have fun with it. So, the three options are staff recommendation, starting fresh with next year. The second is for the superintendent working with his cabinet to identify a cohort starting space, so that'd be just freshmen or freshmen and sophomore, whatever would be operationally the best. And the third would be to have started and have a retroactive grade room for students. So those are your options, 1, 2, and 3. We're just doing a straw poll. So of those,
I'll say 2.
2,
I'll say 1 goes staff recommendation.
1, I'm a 1.
Was the staff recommendation that you would start this in
Fresh next year.
fresh next year at the start of the academic year for all grades?
Correct.
I'm a 1.
I agree to go with staff recommendations to start fresh in the fall, yes.
So we have a clear consensus there? On with it. Okay? All right. We will now, that gets us out of the consent calendar. And we are now going to go to item 7.1, a resolution honoring and recognizing the importance of military service and honoring the district's veterans. And I think Brad has a little bit to share with us. Can we do that? Or not? Okay. So you have the resolution in front of you. Anyone have any comments or questions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion on this resolution.
I would like to make a motion.
A motion to
Let's
approve
make a
resolution.
motion to approve this resolution. I think it's fantastic, and I would love to see this become an annual thing that we address consistently.
We have.
Good.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Can I say something?
Of course.
And I am not going to remember the member of the Navy. I was just thinking of this particularly with this resolution. Our Serena Hart. She has a different Mary name, doesn't she? Anyway, she had recently lost her life in Washington State flying a jet. I'm losing all words, but so I just wanted to recognize that. I really thought about her, particularly as we were doing this resolution. And my oldest son is also in the military, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
We will now move on to item 7.2, which is our revision to physical education and activity board policy 6142.7. And who has this one? Two.
All right, thank you, Board of Education. Tonight, I want to actually thank our teachers in the audience. We have both PE teachers in the audience as well as performing arts teachers in the audience who have really helped us to work through your request of staff to go back and explore opportunities that could be available for physical education credit. So thank you to our staff in the audience. Let me just start. I also want to thank Brad Basham and HR for their partnership in supporting us as we continue to explore the different opportunities available in our system. And then, of course, Amy, Greg, Becky, and Mark Boljon. We had principals representative of the, just to provide that site administrative perspective as well as thoughts as we work through the request of the board. So thank you to our site administrators as well as to Amy. All right, so we start with our board expectations, which is not unfamiliar to all of you. So in particular tonight, this revision to physical education and activity board policy is really grounded in that first board expectations, which is around preparing all students for life, college, and career. So wanted to call that out in particular. Just a quick, brief background. Again, thank you to Trustee Kochar who made this request at our August 27th board meeting to have staff review current PE offerings for students and to explore what education code allows for us to do for our students. Again, thank you to our PE teachers and RSEA representation with Natalie. We met twice, October 17th and 24th, to really learn from our PE teachers with regards to California state standards, recognizing that our physical fitness test requirement occurs in the 9th grade year, and to also review our current course offerings as they exist, as well as potential opportunities. And then, of course, Brad will share later on our staffing impact. Just wanted to bring to everybody's attention that we did look and study at 2 particular board policy in existence to guide our work and our research. And that's with our board policy 6146.1 around our high school graduation requirement, which as it stands right now, we do expect students to meet 2 courses in physical education. And that is actually in correlation with the state's expectations. And typically that falls in the 9th grade year and then the 10th grade year. Also, we studied our board policy 6142.7, which is our physical education and activity board policy. And then we proceeded to gather teacher feedback. So specifically with our PE teachers group, our PE teachers gave us, and I want to thank them again, they gave us great feedback and input with regards to what is expected of students in PE Course 1 and PE Course 2 with regard to the California High School PE standards. They gave us feedback with regards to the possibilities of expanding 10th grade PE course offerings that would meet Year 2 PE standards. They provided some thinking around the current course offerings in our system and provided some offerings that could potentially, should you approve our recommendation tonight, allow our kids to earn Year 2 PE credits, specifically in the courses named athletic PE, weight training, bracket sports, team sports, group fitness, dance 2. And then we also, with the good work of our principals and assistant principals in the room, spoke to some facility and master schedule constraints and the impacts to our facility master schedule. And I wanted to call out that our PE teachers were not in favor of supporting marching band as an alternative course to earning that 10th grade year PE credit, because marching band is not taught by a credentialed PE teacher. So a little bit repetitive here, but these are the courses that our PE teachers recommended as viable alternative courses to earning students that PE 10 second year credit. We also sought our performing arts teachers' input, and again, I want to thank and honor them, who is also in the room tonight. Our performing arts teachers' input with regards to what they believe was best for kids. They actually support me keeping the PE 9 course as a continued required course, given the education code and expectations of students. They support an exemption policy for grade 10 students enrolled in marching band or dance 2 or higher to be exempted from PE 10. They believe marching band and dance provides strenuous aerobic exercise for students, including breathing, posture, and form routines for optimal performance. And again, they believe an exemption policy would allow academically high performance students to double up in math, participate in more college level courses such as AP, dual enrollment IB, and or participate in CTE courses. And actually, they don't just believe it, they conducted surveys with their marching band students and were able to obtain the voices from our students in their marching band classes, who actually called out that if they had that PE 10 exempted or waived, they would actually have had the opportunity to participate in completing a CTE course pathway, for example, or doubling it up on math and completing the entire offering of math earlier in their high school journey, for example. Many of the kids also noted that they would have started a foreign language class earlier and possibly earned the seal of literacy as well. So next I'll turn it over to Brad, who will give us some staffing indications.
Thank you. So, there we go. It's a little difficult to read, but we made the assumption that we have some patterns that repeat. So what you see here is the a list of the current sophomores that are taking both a PE 10 course and an elective that we're talking about as a potential course 2 or potentially an exemption from PE. So weight training, advanced weights, athletic PE, dance 2, 3, and 4, marching band. So you can see by school site, and you can see those enrollments, and roughly there are 957 sophomores that are currently taking both a PE 10 and one of those other courses. So if you translate that into staffing, using roughly 40 students per section, some are a little larger, some are going to be a little bit smaller, that translates to roughly 4.0 FTE. So in other words, if all of those students, 957, satisfied their PE course 2 with either weight training, advanced weights, athletic PE, or had a waiver through dance or marching band, there's a potential impact of not needing 4 PE teachers, okay? That's worst case scenario. The next slide here gives you kind of a breakdown of our current staffing. So we have 52 teachers in the district who are currently teaching at least one PE class. Of those 52, 38 have a full single subject credential in physical education. Of those 38, 22 of them not only have the single subject in PE, but they also have a secondary single subject credential or a supplemental authorization. So it could be social science or health or some other subject area that they're also credentialed to teach. That means that 16 only hold a PE credential and can only teach PE. If you do the math above, 38 teachers have a physical education credential. That leaves 14 out of the 52. That means 14 teachers are currently teaching a physical education course without a PE credential. Of those 14, 3 of them are teaching using an introductory PE authorization. That means they can teach PE 9 only. And 11 of them we've brought to the board and you've approved. We've gone through the committee on assignments. We've used a local assignment option to allow them to teach a PE class. Most of those are going to be athletic PE. There are a few exceptions, but it could be a teacher who is a head coach teaching another subject on campus. We've approved them because of their background, their training, their history, to be able to teach an athletic PE class through that local committee. So the potential implications, if you think about that, we have to figure out how do we take care of the staffing. Over time, we can do that. Our principals are very creative. We have natural attrition through retirements. Folks move, things like that. So that's part of it. You also think about 4 teachers spread over 6 high schools. That means a partial assignment at each site. So we have some options. One is we may be overstaffed. There just may not be an ability to solve at any one particular site, and we may choose to be overstaffed for a year or 2 as we play this out. And there's a cost with that, obviously. We could limit backfilling or any vacant PE positions. We may not need to fill a vacant position because we now have the staffing on the site to take care of it, or we may have to do some transfers from one site to another. Maybe one school doesn't need as many, another site has growth, or has somebody who's retired and we have to move someone. We can also look at assigning PE teachers who hold both the single subject credential in PE as well as another authorization to teach something other than a PE course. For example, if they have a social studies credential, maybe they're assigned to a social studies class in addition to some PE classes. We can also look at eliminating or limiting our use of the local assignment option, meaning that maybe we don't have that head coach approved to teach an athletic PE class because we have a PE teacher teaching that athletic PE class instead. And then we can look at developing additional PE electives that attract kids, that doing some rebranding of some of our current courses so that we have students continue to want to take dance and marching band or weight training and another PE class. So those are some options we have to try to address this. I know that with time, we'll be able to take care of it, but I just wanted to give you all of those options and give you some numbers.
And And so tonight we give you a recommendation of a marrying of all of this study and the work that we have embarked upon, which includes the feedback from our PE teachers, the feedback from our performing arts teachers, and then of course the study of education code, and the study of what our neighboring Union High School districts have done. And so what you see in the attachments is a revision to Board Policy 6142.7, which incorporates the recommendation of our PE teachers by allowing those alternative courses, to allowing 10th grade students to earning those 10 credits in their 10th grade year, as well as the suggestion of our performing arts teachers, which is in alignment of education code, which allows grades 10 to 12 students who are engaged in school-sponsored interscholastic athletics, when students not enrolled in an athletic PE course, enrolled in marching band, enrolled in fall color guard or other dance programs, to take advantage of an exemption, which would be highlighted in this board policy. And I'll turn it over to you, Pete, for board discussion and action.
Thank you. There was one bullet point that I think we didn't get discussion on, and there was one about referencing Rockland's high school district's recommendations. Can you clarify the difference between what they're doing and what we're doing?
Yes, Amy, can you come up and provide that clarity? And then also ask Zach to come up. Zach did extensive research with regards to what Rockland is doing, and in fact suggested that our board take into consideration adopting 3 years worth of PE as well, which is what Rockland is doing.
Just push and hold the button on the.
Hi, you can speak. So I was just taking notes from PE teacher meeting, and so a suggestion did come up when we were looking at surrounding districts and how they have addressed the question that you brought to us in August. And one way that Rockland addressed the changes and recommendation was to add a third year PE. So I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, during our research, when we were looking at surrounding districts that have gone to policies that are similar to the vacating PE 10 for alternative classes, they have a long list of classes that they are able to take, things from female-only weight training to male-only weight training, all the way through things like PE leadership. And as we identified some of the classes that we have in this district, and some of the other things that we can offer or feel like are good places to move forward, we did identify some classes that we feel are good replacements, while we also identified some classes that we feel don't meet those criteria, such as, like I teach an outdoor PE class, which is fantastic and the kids love it, but it doesn't replace the standards that we are expected to hold to for PE 9 and PE 10, and that's one of our main concerns, is that we are eroding the standards of what the kids are being delivered in their educational experience as they get niche classes instead of a rounded experience from what they reach in PE 10 as well as adding on to PE 9. So one of the things that offers a greater and more robust educational experience is that those Rockland schools are adding a third year of PE, so kids are reaching more than one elective in that, and so we'll see a greater variety of activities that can fit a few more of those class standards. While we understand that they won't all be reached if you take PE 10 away, just because of the formats of the classes don't allow for the variety that is listed in the California State Law Content Standards.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions before we get to discussion?
What Rockland also is doing, just to clarify, they do provide a waiver that if students are participating in 2 seasons of a sport, that does count as one of those years, correct? So
I did not research that portion of it. We looked at classes only because this new.
It's in a catalog. I mean, I also did research too.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that this is new, the idea that like we didn't talk about it in our board committee or in our committee meetings, to discuss the addition of having an exemption for students who are participating in sport. I don't believe that's reflected possibly responsibly in the staffing issues as well, that students receive credit for the sport outside of a class day and outside of what they do. The other thing is the specificity of that sport, while fantastic for competitive advantages, doesn't offer the well-rounded student an opportunity to explore different methods that maybe will be available to them after high school, where some of these sports have very limited opportunities, say like a contact football sport, things like that. The other thing is you can't guarantee the amount of kids that are actively participating in competitive gameplay when they're on a team. However, maybe they're not participating in the competition portion of the team and then receiving credit for those classes. So I think it's a dangerous place to think about.
I'm gonna cut you off there because this is the question and answer period, so I want to keep just answers to the questions versus opinions at this point. Any other questions that we have for staff? Okay, so we'll now, Carrie, I'd like to start with you since this was your request.
We're in the comment section?
We're now in comments, hold on to questions, yeah.
Okay. So, we've all received a handful of emails from parents. This is something that I've talked to parents for years now, personal experience. I really think this is a policy that's long overdue. I've even seen districts go as far as kids that were in like competitive gymnastics, competitive year-round swim, training for the Olympics in downhill skiing. You know, kids that are serious athletes, that they got waivers and didn't have to participate in 10th grade PE from that. So I'd really also like to bring to the table that PE is important. I will never diminish California state standards, but I also want to make sure that we're conscientious of how much our kids are doing. I know my daughter alone right now, she does competitive softball, competitive soccer, and on top of PE. So when we come down to minutes of exercise and the amount of time spent doing this, I feel like sometimes it's outweighing the time spent on academics. And so if this is one class, and it really is one class only, that we're taking away, it's opening up the opportunity for an additional academic to take a DE, to take an AP, or to take a performing arts, or what about the students who struggle and have to retake a math class, or retake an English class, or want to take that Spanish 3? It's only one class, and I know that it can get a little bit messy in terms of credentialing, but I know that we also, if we employ everybody to make the best decisions for their staff and for students, we can come up with solutions that work for everybody. So I think this is a really reasonable request. My only thing in here is that I would really like to see marching band, and I asked for all the numbers for marching band and the color board art as well. It looks like it averages out to about 4 students per current 10th grade, PE class as it is right now. I don't know that that's really going to throw us off. I don't, maybe Brad, if you could include those numbers, would that be an additional FTE that we're talking about instead of 4 district-wide? Would this be 5? Is this 4.5? I don't know how that would impact the FTE.
So I did include marching band on that slide. It's 108 students district-wide. It's about a 0.5. It's a half FTE.
Okay, so altogether though, we're still only at the 4.
Yes, that's part of the 4.
Perfect.
But I do want to also recognize what Mr. Lovell said. I did not include any numbers regarding outside competition with interscholastic athletics. But I still think that many or most of the students, because they're participating, they don't want to miss that 4th period course. Usually they're taking a weight training or an athletic PE. That's not going to be all of them, so it will have an impact. But it won't be 1-for-1, I don't think.
Now, the one thing that I didn't see included here, what about kids that are just in sports that maybe would, if they're, take, I don't know, varsity tennis, all 4 years, and they don't have a athletic PE class, right? There's no athletic PE class, but they are playing in that sport for all 4 years. Is that included? Are those numbers included if those kids now apply for
fighting with a microphone that's dying. No, that's what I was just alluding to or responding to. I did not include any numbers that reflected students that are only participating in sports and would have a PE waiver. So I think we have roughly 4,500 students district-wide, 9th grade through 12th grade participating in athletics on an annual basis. So roughly, I'm assuming 1,100 kids, maybe a little more, that are sophomores. I still think the vast majority of those 1,100 will take an athletic PE class, but you're right, there will be a small portion of them that will qualify for the waiver if we adopt the language that was presented.
Let's make sure Carrie's done with her comments.
I
before
am,
we
thank
go.
you.
Okay.
And if there are any additional questions, yeah, I'd like to comment. Actually, I'd like to speak to you, Natalie, for just a little bit of backstory. So I was on vacation in August when this came up, and so Carrie kind of ran with it. What we discussed, and she ran with it. So my perspective on this, and I will share when my oldest was a freshman in high school, so now she's in college, and I got onto the high school campus, and I learned that some kids were required to take athletic PE in order to participate in an extracurricular activity. And it's not all sports. I know I think it's varsity, and don't quote me on this, but water polo kid. If someone wants to play water polo, they have to take athletic PE. I think varsity football. I've heard it would create basketball, not necessarily freshmen, but starting sophomore year, some of them are taking athletic PE, and it seems to be a requirement. And I heard this, and my daughter's track and cross country, and I'm like, oh my gosh, does my daughter have to take this? And it was, no, they won't have to. It was a relief because those kids who are required to take athletic PE in order to participate in an extracurricular activity, which we all say is so valuable to all of our kids, now they're making choices. So they're missing out on some academic freedom and flexibility because they are an athlete. And they still have to take PE. So we used to start asking questions like, why are we making this subset of kids take they're required to take 2 PE classes some of those years. That's where this sort of came from. And then suddenly I get a band kid. And oh no, she wants to participate in this extracurricular, it's an extracurricular activity. They're starting in the summer, they're playing all day Saturday, they're going 0 period after school, and it's very much like a sport also. And she's required to take band of the 32 academic slots, 5 of those are band, probably similar to some of these athletes also. And so that's where this is. For me, that's what's driving this. It's not about trying to find, well, you could do stages, but I'm looking at these kids who want to be a part of sport, a part of, marching band. I asked if the dance team was required to take dance, and I kind of heard no, but I was looking for what are the other things that we're making our kids do class-wise in order to do something after school. And so that's where my heart was coming from all this. It wasn't necessarily, let's find absolutely every single way to excuse a kid from PE, which, thank you for all this work, because that helps you make decisions. So that's where I'm coming from. And that's why I feel if we need to discuss rolling something out slowly, I don't think it's fair to only include athletes as part of, it's in this umbrella of PE teachers, so we're gonna give certain athletes the flexibility, but not band kids or color guard. Because when you read those comments from students of, I had to choose between a CTE path or starting foreign language, truly, I made my daughter in 8th grade map out her entire 4 years and said, show me how this will work, and it's hard to do it all. If you want to go into a STEM career, you have to get calculus and theory in your junior year, and you're making choices of what you will and won't take. And so
when we say it's one class, it's huge to open up one slot your sophomore year, just to give you a little bit more flexibility. And so now I'm gonna get off my soapbox and how I feel.
Well, you said a lot.
I know.
I want to know something we can think of this policy. 'Cause this is the one we're voting on. So all that other was great background, but.
Well, and I think, I'm trying to be respectful of where we're coming from. So I would, okay. How do I say that? I think I think we need to give flexibility in how we allow some of our students to capture their PE10 credits. I don't want to alarm all of our teachers and do something with just a wide brush. I think we could pare down what we have here and maybe first just roll out to the students who are being required to take athletic PE, marching band, color guard, in order to participate in extracurricular. And if the dance team falls into that, I think we should include dance, and I just don't know if that's the case. I think that would be a small start, and then if that is successful and we see that there are more students that want to take more weight training, and I'm open to expanding it, but I don't necessarily feel like we have to do it all at once.
So are you saying you disagree with the staff recommendation?
I agree with her that I'm trying to be nice and not do it as broadly. So I would make a motion to pare it down if you want me to.
Well, we haven't heard from everybody yet, so, any further comment on staff's recommendation?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I had 4 boys who did 4 years of water polo each, and we had this scenario with each of them, wondering why they were needing to do PE10 while also doing water polo. So I am really in favor of this policy. I think that it speaks to our board expectations of supporting students with the best educational opportunities by opening up an additional opportunity for them to take another academic class when they're already doing the physical activity through their sports. And I would say do it all. I think choosing some and not choosing some is not really effective. My recommendation would be, let's do everything that's athletically inclined as you have researched, and let's do it and make it great.
Anything else? Or I can explain something.
I think I'm on, yep, I'm turned on. I am in support of being able to do as much as possible without causing chaos. So I'm sort of kind of in between the two of you. I don't have kids yet who play sports, but just as a fitness-minded person in a fitness and health career, anytime I'm on my campus and I see, dance, band, cheer, all of it, even the plays, the performing art plays where they're dancing and singing, I'm just like, these kids have got to be exhausted. How are they even having time for everything? So I am on the side of as much as we can possibly allow for waivers and exemptions. I'm all for it without, really just finding the balance of staffing. And so I don't know what that looks like.
All right, I'd like to hear from our student board members if you have comments, and then I'll make my comments at the end.
I'm personally not really a fan. I am a soccer player and I play full-time competitive, but I think it's going to cause a lot of problems if you pick all these sports but don't pick marching band, and then, I just think there's going to be a problem no matter what, and I think PE10 really brings together everybody and we learn skills, and academics is important, but I think it's a good break for kids to come out of the classroom and really have hands-on and build team skills together. And also just be outside and really clear your mind, refresh. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. And then also too, for those athletic PE classes, what about the kids that don't make the basketball team, are they still allowed to be in that class? Or I mean, I just feel like there's a lot of people that are going to be pushed away or neglect. So that's where I stand.
Okay. So I play baseball. I've personally been a part of athletic P. This is going to be my second year doing athletic P, but I also did water polo prior to that. So I had a semester where I did have athletic P and P10 the same semester, and it does get a little chaotic. And I did question, why am I doing P10 but also playing a varsity sport at the same time? So I've kind of always been on board that if you are that level, like varsity level sport athlete, I do not believe you should have to take P10. But then again, as Mr. Lovell mentioned, there's obviously some players that on varsity teams that do not play as much as others. That limits their opportunities and the amount of physical activity that they get to participate in. So I am on board with that argument. I think that's a very good argument towards turning this down. But yeah, I do agree that it would create a lot of chaos with marching band and all our extracurriculars that could get in the mix. So if it can be done simple and efficient, I'm on board with it. But as of now, it's looking a little chaotic. So that's kind of where I stand on it. Is if it could be a little more simplified, I think it can work out.
Thank you. So I have 5 kids, all have made it through the system here, all multi-sport athletes doing a number of different things and balancing their PE and academics and all that. So obviously I reached out to my constituency to see what they thought at home, and all of them were very supportive of this. But I've had a number of conversations with students, specifically on this, current students, and talked to them about it. And there seems to be pretty broad support amongst the students. I will just say that since Carrie brought this up, we have our professional staff. They've gone out, they've done the work, and they've come to us with a recommendation, and I think we should support that recommendation. They're the experts. They've provided us this information, and I think that's the direction we should go.
Can I
Yes.
get clarity on something real quick? So in the actual board policy changes that were made, I don't see where marching band or,
Are you looking at Exhibit A or Exhibit B?
I'm looking at Exhibit B. I can see in the exemption where it's included, but it's not included for the physical education credit may be granted for like the courses that are listed. Is marching band not a class?
It is a class. It's under the section other exemption, so further down.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a class, but what they do, they get exempted from the PE credits. So they won't get PE 10 credits because they're exempted from the course.
And I think part of that, Carrie, and explain this if I don't explain it correctly, but it's because those teachers aren't credentialed. The marching band teachers aren't credentialed to teach a PE class to get that PE credit. So it's an exemption
That's
instead
why it
of
wasn't
credit.
listed that's why it wasn't initially listed in the first section of the additions, right? Courses that may be granted for a second year of physical education credit include, because those are all current PE courses.
Taught by PE credentialed teachers.
And then down below for other exemptions, this is where we provided the opportunity that students who are not taking the current PE course, that this counts for that.
So one they receive credit because it's a PE course, the other they receive an exemption from having to take it. So it's 2 different cohorts being treated similarly through 2 different methods.
So what I haven't seen then, can someone clarify for me then if they're in a sport, right, they're playing, and so like to Mr. Lovell's point, maybe they don't play as much. I know in football, if you're not one of the starters, you don't practice as much, you don't play as much in the games. That's not true of all sports, but in some sports that is more likely than others. Is there going to be any kind of requirement that they have to play in a sport for 2 or 3 seasons? Is there going to be a criteria on how many seasons they have to play in order to cover that PE 10?
So in studying other nearby high school districts, they do have a contract. So once a student and their parent enacts or takes advantage of an exemption, should our board pass this board policy, policy, staff would then give student and parent that contract. And that type of language could be in said contract, which I saw pick that up on some of our Bay Area high school districts. They do have those very specific components. And in fact, Lynn Lewis was here in the audience, did extensive research. And Lynn, I don't know if you want to put some weight to what you found as well then.
Push the button there. There you go.
First time? I did. I researched other bands and other programs, and I just copied them and made that as a suggestion. There's a contract in most of them that say you have to be in marching band for 2 years, and that will waive the second year, or that PE 10. And again, it's not credit. It's just a waiver. They don't have to do it, and they could supplement that with another class. So that was the copy, the template that I used for the idea.
And can I ask another question? If a student still wanted to take PE 10, they could, right? Like if the marching band kid gets the waiver for the exemption, but they still want to take PE 10?
They absolutely could. I do have a lot of athletes in band too, and so they're now currently, if I have kids that do cross country, they also are in that athletic PE class, plus a core class, which is band during the day, plus 0 period. So it becomes equally hard for an athlete that does band to fit all of that into.
I feel like this is what even my high school had in Southern California. I think we had to commit to you had to be on a sport team for 2 years. And if you did not fulfill that, then you had to go back through and take the class.
Right. In my conversations with the other band directors, their kids, if they don't fulfill that second year, PE is just added to their schedule.
And I think it's important to point out that the policy says may be granted, not shall be granted. So that's where the contract comes in, that if you want to take advantage of maybe being granted that, you have to meet these conditions. So that's where the operationalizing of this comes into play.
I like it, well thought.
Thank you.
So, may I add clarification?
Hang on a second. Did we have student board members that wanted to add in?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Just wanted to add clarification, Carrie, to your point of noting that 6th paragraph with those viable courses that are taught by PE credentialed employee. I want to be clear in further studying after this had been published, and actually our good PE teachers reminded us of this. Not all dance teachers are PE credentialed, so I would recommend we move that dance, which already actually shows up in the exemption language at the very bottom of the second to the last page with dance programs. And I would recommend that we strike out dance 2 through 4, just to be true to the fact that not all dance teachers have PE credential.
I think that's a good idea.
So let me ask you, in your grid, when you were showing how many students might be affected, you didn't include the students who might be playing a sport that does not require athletic PE. So that's kind of an unknown. But in the language you recommended, you are including them as potential exemption. Is that a problem right now, as we don't know what that will do?
Well, we just have different opportunities at different schools. Some schools will just have a blanket athletic PE 4th period, and multiple sports players, students will be assigned to that. Then they go meet coaches at different fields, especially if they're off campus and things like that. So most of the time they're doing that because they just don't want to miss 4th period. But we don't have that across the system. We have some schools with robust athletic PE programs and other schools that are just kind of very minimal. And so we wanted to make sure where kids have the opportunity for athletic PE, they should do that. But in cases where they don't have it, we didn't want them to have to not have something the other kids did.
Okay.
So based on all this, we have staff's recommendation, which go ahead.
I just have one question. So if we did do the athletic PE, would that count as practice? Or, because I'm just kind of confused, I'm like, I know right now our basketball class, they work out, and then after school they have practice, so I feel like it's kind of the same as having PE and then having athletic PE. like you're still getting overworked. So if we are doing that, I feel like if the athletic PE is one, that should count as their practice, because, you know, having doubled up right after school too is a lot for kids.
Most athletic PE is practice. That's when they start practice. They start practice early.
Okay.
So I mean, again, that's why it's different at every school.
Yeah, thank you.
And can I just add to that, I think regardless of if a student actually plays in the game, they're going to practice every day. So the playing in the game is neither here nor there to me, and counting towards actually the physical activity. Practice every day is really where it's at.
All right, so based on this, we have a staff recommendation. We've heard that it aligns with what a number of other school districts are doing. Here, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make the motion since this is your idea.
Would absolutely like to make a motion that we pass board policy 7.2.
And would that be with the amendment that was suggested of moving dance?
Thank you for the
Striking dance
clarification,
from-
yes, to strike dance from the PE course and move it down to under the exemption wording, correct?
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
No second.
Oh, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal.
Can I say one more thing? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I did it out of order. For some reason, and I am in favor, just so you know, so don't worry, but under the other exemption, every time I read that, I'm reading it just the way that it's written. I'm reading it, students in grades 10 through 12 who are engaged in school-sponsored interscholastic athletics, when student is not enrolled in athletic PE course, marching band, it makes it sound to me like if they're not enrolled in marching band, if they're not enrolled in color guard. So it just, I've had to read it a number of times, so just reword it so it makes more sense.
We'll reword it, really that non-enrolled applies to athletic PE. So we will reword it so it's clear.
Okay, or can you just add a clarification that this is, you know, for all the activities outside of, you know, one of the athletic courses or PE courses, just add a clarification.
I think if you just add the word such as after the comma before marching band, it will solve that issue. Good catch. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. The motion is to accept staff recommendations with the edits of striking dance in the upper part, adding language such as, in front of marching band, and we already have dance programs in there. So that's the motion and the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, that is unanimous. Thank you. We will now clear up some of these tabs. Well, now, I'm being asked for a 5-minute break, so let's take a short 5-minute break. It's 8:21 by my phone, so we're back here at 8:26 promptly. Take your advice. I was actually thinking the same.
So you really put up the tree already?
I took my son wanted to go out this year, so we went out this year, and I was looking for a memorial. So this is like, I mean, I usually think so.
Do you use an R16?
Yeah.
January 16th.
It's the day after my birthday. I don't think all the decorations are
We normally go up to cut down the tree, but this year I think we have.
All right, 1 minute.
I like flowers.
No, that's good, we go up to there. This year.
He said it's 26, I'm like, yeah.
Because it smells, and then the needles are all over. Yes, that's neat.
I got a new flock, I like the flock, it's really like it's all, like I was actually. Yeah, but
Where are you storing your
I have a.
I'm having a hard time.
And you decorate all of them?
Okay, everyone, we're going to call back to order. All right, welcome back from our short break. We're now going to move into 7.3, approval of school plans for student achievement. And Hugh, is that you, or who's going to?
Dr. Gandhi will be presenting on our behalf.
Welcome, welcome.
This is my first time.
Well, welcome.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity today to present on our student plan for achievement, school achievement. The purpose of today is to really talk about our CIPSA, who is involved, the process that we take, documenting how we involve our site councils and our educational partners in ensuring that our CIPSAs are effective, and also ensuring that we're serving our students, primarily our unduplicated students. That is the purpose of the plan.
There we go.
Okay, so the CIPSA is a plan to maximize resources. What we do is we want to ensure that our CIPSAs are aligned with our district outcome. The CIPSA outlines school individual goals. Along with that, we want to make sure that the strategies and the activities reach those goals that each site develops. It's basically a roadmap to improve student achievement, and we want to ensure that all of our title funds are being spent appropriately. So the CIPSA generally is a 5-step process. What we do is we take a look at all of our data. So we look at our CASP data, our dashboard, AP data, IB data, graduation rates. We take that data, we analyze it to then determine what the needs are. Through that process, we engage all of our educational partners. We engage our site councils, We engage our teachers, we engage our leadership teams at each of our sites, and in working collaboratively with our educational services team, we ensure that the plan meets all of those requirements. Who is involved? So the school site council is primarily involved in developing, evaluating, and also making recommendations for the SIPSA. It is made up of a team of members. The members are nominated through their sites. Nominations are sent out through Parent Square. Then there's a ballot process where each of the community members at the site are voted in. Once they're voted in, they then go through a training with me at the beginning of the year with the principal and the chair. And in that training, we go through what their requirements will be and what they will essentially be doing, which is to develop, document, and evaluate the SIPSA and make recommendations. Once that is done, they then work throughout the year in their regularly scheduled school site council meetings to develop their SIPSA. That is in front of you tonight. In the development of the SIPSA, what we do is we essentially first look at their past SIPSA. When they look at their past SIPSA, they also look at their current data. So the current data that they look at is their dashboard data, their CASP, AP, IB results, graduation rates, CCI indicators. These are all data points that they look at to see how are our students doing. From there, they then determine needs. By determining needs, they're then able to work collaboratively with all of their educational partners to then determine what will our goals be based on the needs. Everything comes down to what is our data telling us, and from what is our data telling us, where do we go from here now to ultimately improve student achievement. Once all of that is done, their SIPSAs are taken to their site council, and at the site council, a draft is provided to every site council member. That draft is reviewed, analyzed, and also feedback is provided back to the site leaders to either take out or make any additions. In addition to that, they also work collaboratively with Ed Services to ensure that all laws, regulations are in the SIPSA and that title funds are being used appropriately. So basically we want to ensure that their SIPSAs at each site is in alignment with the district LCAP, which is what the board approves as well. So why do we have a SIPSA? It is very time consuming and requires a labor of love. But really, the purpose of it is to provide a focus and direction for all of our sites. We want to give all of our educational partners an opportunity to have a voice in this process, because ultimately, the SIPSA is about our students here in Roseville. And we want to ensure that the plan that we develop ultimately serves all of our students. And it also allows for accountability. It holds all of us as the adults accountable for what we're doing, ensuring that all of our students' needs are being met. Well, where and when do we do this? All of this work happens in our school site council meetings. These meetings are public meetings, and so the public is allowed to attend and also be part of this development process. They are able to provide public comment and also provide feedback as well. And so now I'd actually like to ask one of our principals to come up to share the process that they've taken.
Seema kind of said it all already, so I won't talk very long. I will tell you that there are two primary most important things for me in my position as principal. One is the feedback from our stakeholders, so it's that shared leadership. And the second piece is the ongoing conversations about supporting our students and specific groups of students. So those are my two important pieces. As Seema mentioned, these conversations are ongoing about looking at our student data and our student supports. We're having these conversations all the way through until we put the SIPSA together and present it to the board. And those come, as mentioned, through, those conversations come through our school site councils, as she mentioned, which include our family members, parents, students, staff members, and then also the public. Each of our agendas has a public comment link in case anybody can't join. And they can put a comment in for the SIPSA or anything else as well in our student site, in our site councils. We also bring it to our ELAC committees, which are comprised of families and staff members. And then, as she mentioned, we bring it to all of our leadership teams and have these conversations ongoing throughout the year. And that our leadership teams are comprised of leaders from around all different pieces of our campus. So we have a lot of eyes on the SIPSA and a lot of feedback throughout the year. And before completing the draft you see in front of you, I'm just going to give you an example of what I do. I link all of the entire SIPSA to the school site council, the ELAC, and to our leadership meetings. So they've got a riveting 60 to 100 page document in front of them that I'm sure they all read from page 1. But it is kind of lengthy, so they have it linked, but then what I'll do to make it a little bit easier in these meetings, a little taller than this, I'll actually print out hard copies of the goals. Because for me, the richest conversations come from the goal areas. And it looks like a lot, but it's not, because there's a lot of spaces. And so it really makes it manageable to go through the goals in a given meeting, which is 1 hour. And so what I'll talk about first with each of these groups is I'll make sure they understand the school goal. For example, Wood Creek has 3 goals in our areas, how it's aligned to the LCAP goals for the district. We talk about the identified needs and the description of that. And then we go down to the measurable outcomes, which of course has our metrics, as Seema mentioned. And then it has baseline outcomes and then expected outcomes. And what you'll notice is the expected outcomes, there's really a lot of thought that goes into that. Because in a given year, I think given 2%, 3%, 4% increase is probably a good, reasonable expected outcome. Although sometimes I like 10 to 15% or something like that. That's more of a miracle. So making sure that those expected outcomes are reasonable. And then I think for me, in my experience, the best conversation pieces in these meetings with these groups of folks, our stakeholders, come within the strategies activities section. And really that's what are we doing to serve our students. And so in that section, we talk about all the activities strategies within each goal area. We look at the students that are served and of course the proposed expenditures. But for me, that's the meat and potatoes. That's the most important part. We have the greatest dialogue with our stakeholders. And I just want to give you an example. A couple weeks ago, after going through the SIPSA with all of these groups of people in these meetings, I forgot to have our ELAC parent representative sign the SIPSA. So I asked him to come back in. And he came back in and he signed it and then he said, I just want to have some clarifying questions. He had actually read the whole thing and had gone back and reflected and had some great questions. So we were able to have some more dialogue mostly about our strategies and our activities that we had within the Wood Creek SIPSA. And one thing he mentioned, he said, I really love, for example, that you give all your EL students all access passes. And from there we started talking about how important student connections are, that they feel connected and part of the school. And then he said, do you mind if I offer you another suggestion? Of course you can offer me another suggestion. He said, would you consider, I know you do a lot for bringing in parents too, but would you consider giving access pass to parents for maybe a game or activity or performing arts? This was a Monday or Tuesday just a couple weeks ago. And I told him, I said, we have a game on this Friday. How about if we give all EL families an access pass to bring their entire family to the football game? He said, that would be great. So we did. It was super easy, made a pass for all families, and we had a lot of EL families attend our football game that Friday. And many of those had never been to a football game. So that just shows you the value of having the input from all of these stakeholders. So that brings me back around to my 2 most important things that I value is that shared leadership and then those ongoing conversations year after year about how we're supporting students. So that's kind of my take on the SIPSA. And any questions for me or my colleagues?
Thank you. So if there are any questions about the SIPSA or the process that we've taken, I would love to answer them for you. And if you don't, it's okay too. My feelings will not be hurt.
All right, starting off with questions. Yeah, let's make sure no questions. So very much. Now for discussion and comments. Tiffany?
It seems like with all the work that's gone into this, this should be a super robust discussion, but I mostly just want to say thank you too. I mean, there's obviously a lot of work from all of the sites that goes into this with a lot of people involved. It'd be kind of interesting to know how many man hours, actually goes into it, but, right, that's what I mean. But anyway, just to say, you've presented so much, and it seems like it'll go so fast to just say, good job, but great work.
Any other comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve all this?
I'll make a motion to approve of the SIPSAs.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you very much for all the hard work. All right, so our next item is board discussion on grants. I asked John to add this on to a general board discussion for two reasons. One is we were supposed to have this discussion in the board policy committee, but it got canceled because of my back. And then second, in talking and hearing different board members' perspectives and talking to staff, I think there is a wide variety of potential opinions amongst us on this issue. And I thought rather than having staff go do a bunch of work and perhaps go to the policy committee and get some changes and give approval and come to the board and have more additional questions and changes, perhaps we should have a discussion so that our staff knows what the board is expecting, so they can then work on the potential changes to the policy and bring it back to us. As we get into this discussion, I'll ask John in a minute for his introductory comments, but I just wanted to remind all of us that a couple things. One is sometimes we use the same term for completely different things. And from my observation, the word grant happens to be one of those. So when we have grants that we may apply for, we have grants that may come to us through like block grants from the federal government that aren't competitive grants. So a lot of our funding comes in blocks of grants, but then we have competitive grants that we may apply for. We may have other grants that we're invited to apply for. So they're all different. And I think there are a number of areas where the board touches these issues and a number of areas where staff touches these issues. So one of the things that we may end up having some expanded discussion with Joe about tonight is how grants are impacted on the budget. As you know, we pass a budget, we have a first interim, we have a second interim, and as those budgets come to us, there may be changes in them because of grants that have been accepted or grants that have not been awarded or grants that may have expired or different things, and they're reflected in our budget documents. So we do have board input and approval of expenditures from grants through the budget process. But I know there have been some questions on what items should come, when items should come to the board. So should the board be discussing grants before they're applied for? Should the board just be informed when grants have been applied for? Should there be a formal board acceptance of grants? Or is, as I believe, is the grant process actually an administrative function and the budget implementation is a board function? Or do we want to look and have parameters and guidelines that we provide staff so that they understand what the board's viewpoints and priorities are as far as the types of grants that we may apply for? And I just want to make sure that we're always conscious of and openly discussing what are board roles versus what are administrative roles, and that we clarify it in this type of setting so staff knows what areas they're responsible for and feel like they can go out and administer the organization. The board has clear expectations of when and how they're going to be informed or engaged in the budget process, the grant process. I just want to make sure we have an opportunity to talk talk all that through so that we can give clear direction to staff as we go forward. And I think John probably has some opening comments. I don't know if Joe's gonna have any as well, but I'll hand it off to you and then we'll get into the board discussion.
Yeah, thank you. So, we thought it was a good idea to circle back to this topic just to make sure we have clarity in terms of practice and alignment to policy. Historically speaking, there really wasn't a huge grant pursuit process. And it really started back in 2016, 17, when at that time the board directed to go start wellness centers. And with that, the only way to do that was through grant funding. And so we had a couple staff who at that point went out on the pursuit of grants. Most of those were at the direction of the board, so they never really came this way. It was just go find funding to do this. And so we had a couple staff members, mostly our wellness coordinators, who were just on pursuits of grants. And where and how and why they were getting them, they were just going to get money. And that's kind of where it all kind of started. And so as we've gone through that, what we started to realize is some of these grants, albeit were meaningful at the time, then started having staffing implications, longevity, sustainability implications, and or simply just going where and when did it come from. There wasn't a whole lot of an internal control from the audit today, I'm using my vocabulary from the audit, an internal control mechanism to really kind of, really capture them, know where they're at, what's happening, when do they expire. And so over the last few years, we started going, when does this grant expire? And then it was, well, if it's expiring, we've got staff attached to this, let's go find more. And so, but there really wasn't a mechanism for that. And then as we have seen CTE, Joe always brings business grants to us, like the Clean Air through Placer County, air control, and we've seen some of these grants, especially the big CTE, K-12 strong workforce. There's, been dozens of these type of grants that have come through, and most have come through the approval process, but not in a systemic fashion. And so what we've really tried to do is, one, make sure within our process of cabinet, making sure if the idea of a grant comes to us, we can vet it to make sure it aligns to our board objectives and our district goals, make sure there's no staffing implications and things like that. So really this calendar year, you've seen that. You've seen the CTE ones come, Joe brought a few, you've seen stock grants and things like that. So really for us, we just want to make sure our practice is aligning to the board expectation and the board policy to make sure we're bringing things to the board. For most of them, like the two we saw today, these are great grants for our students. They give them opportunities, it ties us with industry. It's really providing us robust programs, as we all saw when the community college chancellor's office and the state Department of Finance and everybody came and visited us last year. And so we're really getting a lot of benefit from that. But really, we just want to make sure our practice aligns with policy and the expectation of the board and how you want to see these come through. It's not an extra step for us. We really just want to make sure there's clarity, there's awareness, there's transparency, and that we're all in alignment so that when people may ask a question about a grant, there's a cohesive understanding of what it is, why it is, where did it come from. And so we've created those kind of controls in cabinet now and examining, what should or shouldn't come forward. There hasn't been a lot, mainly the CTE ones, and so we've been trying to capture all of that and just to make sure we have our internal controls in place. Those who are inspired grant writers know what the process is, and there's some ways to kind of process it all and really sift through it. Is this what we want or don't want? Because we don't want another situation like the CYNBHI, I don't know if I got that right. Did I get that right? See, she knows that well. We don't want a situation like something that big coming through, there wasn't an authentic vetting process, and because that caused confusion and misunderstanding throughout the whole system, including the board and us. We don't want that situation. And so we're of the mindset, we like bringing them here. One, if it's a lengthy application process like some of the K-12 strong workforce grants are, where we have to do stakeholder engagement with Sierra College, stakeholder engagement with industry. It might take 2-3 months of meetings to plan an application because there's joint forces involved. We like that on the front end before we go dive into that. So our goal would be to make sure you're aware of it and you're like, yep, go get it. There might be others that are very simple, 1-2 page. Let's fill it out, see what happens. If we get it, we'll bring it to the board, and if they want to keep it, great. If not, it wasn't a lot of time expense. So they're kind of both of those. So that's kind of what we've been doing and working on through cabinet to really just make sure we have our internal controls. We can vet it to ensure alignment to our expectations and our goals, budget and staffing implications long term, so that we don't have 5 or 6, 7 staff members when the grant runs out. Now we're owed positions we may not be able to fund. That's not fair to them. So we want to make sure all of that process is in place before we really march out and go do anything. So
thanks. And I'll just add that as we started to have this discussion, and I had some lengthy discussions with John about it, I went back and reviewed a bunch of our board meetings and agendas, and there was quite a variety of points in time when grants came to us, whether it's, I've been here 4 years now. Sometimes we didn't find out about it at all, except that it appeared in our budget. So it was a line item in our budget, and we saw it, and we approved it. Other times there were discussions about, should we do this? This is what we're thinking, and we've had some discussion. Other times we found out when it was awarded, and other times there was no real communication. It was kind of all over the place. So I think what we're looking to find here is some clarity on what we as individual board members would like to see, and then us come to a collective consensus on what we would like to see as a board, so that staff can continue their work in ironing this out, being more predictable for us. So with that, I want to hear from each of you if you have comments on this, and I don't care who goes first. It's a burning desire to speak, including our students all the way at the end. Go ahead.
So thank you, John, for that introduction and helping understand the history behind it. I really appreciate you wanting to be transparent, just to alleviate concern and where it's not an extra step. Does something need to happen as we had talked on the phone, you said this is in your practice. Would it be helpful to staff for us to clarify something more in the current policy to help you in that practice?
I think it's working fine. I think we know which ones, like for instance, if we're applying for a school bus grant, we know we may be able to get it, may not, and it's usually not a long application, so we try. But we know that there are other grants that are a little more lengthy, and we should kind of get buy-in and first. So it's working out what we're doing.
And Tiffany, if I could add, our board policy right now has board engagement at the acceptance portion. So, and that has come in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's been rather informal, sometimes it's been formal, sometimes it's been part of the budget process. So there's always been some board action, but it hasn't been consistent. And so I think that's where the practice could improve. But I've also heard from individual board members, just what I've heard from our discussions, that maybe there's some grants that we may not want them to apply for. We'd like to know more early on, and I think that's kind of the feedback, John. Were there any constraints we want to put on them, or we want to just let them go for it, and when they are awarded money, then bring it to us? Is there anything else that we would like to see so that we can formalize it a little bit more, or not?
I don't want to see them waste time. And so when you mentioned that some grants might take a lot of bandwidth and meetings, do we need to put that in the board policy saying don't waste your time? Or is that a judgment call? So, and I would probably err on the side of judgment call.
Yeah, it's likely a judgment call on that one. It could be an information item, it could be consent that we're letting you know this is what we'd like to do, and if there's any questions up front, you know, we can do that. We can always do a secondary once we get it, inform the board of getting it. I think with some of the CTE ones, we've done approvals up front, and then we've done Friday updates when we've got them, or notify the board when we get them. It could be, there's a lot of ways we can do it once we get them. Like I said, it's really a big, robust ones where you've got multiple agencies involved, like Sierra College, they have their board, and we have ours, and we have industry. And try to make sure that's front-loaded, you know, before everyone really gets going, so that it doesn't get derailed. But those are $1 million grants and really highly competitive. And so for us, it's kind of a judgment. I mean, like I said, we look at the current policy, we just interpret it as it either needs to come at the approval to go or the approval to accept is how we're practicing it. You know, for us, that's our directive. We talked about it lengthy in cabinet, and it's trickled down through our system now. So it's kind of our process. I don't know if we necessarily need any language change in the policy because that's kind of what we're doing. And hopefully, as they come through, like you saw today, we had some. Joe had one in August, we had some in February, and we'll continue to bring those and hopefully get into a rhythm of it so that we start to know how to expect it.
Can I jump in? So I would like to add that I would agree that Kevin said exactly what the policy pretty much says, that, you know, we're gonna present major grants, you know, at least that boards can accept major grants. I think where I get a little bit sticky, that I'm looking for a little more clarity is once it's accepted, what about the renewals? You know, if there was any changes in the grant, in the renewal, how are we looking at that? And then how are we managing it? Like all the grants, whether it seems like Joe does a great job of keeping track of all grants that include funding, but some of the grants are just, they have other deliverables and there's other expectations. And so where do we see that all on a consolidated list? And I feel like in terms of transparency, we should have one consolidated list that has all grants. And I'm gonna actually add in MOUs as well, because as we've seen from just the way the landscape of grants have changed in California, it seems like some of the grants are not just grants given directly to districts, some are, but there's also grants that are awarded to the County Office of Education, and then from the County Office of Education, they are then trickled down into the districts by means of memorandums of understanding. So my concern comes that grants aren't just grants anymore. Grants now also include memorandums of understanding. And so one of the things that I would like to see added into our policy is the addition of memorandums and understandings. And not just for those that there's money given, but also where there's other deliverables. Like we saw with the CYB, whatever, you know, they wanted us to change our multi-payer theater schedule. They wanted us to incorporate that, and I've seen some of the other districts in the area. That's the MOU that's expected, that you have to implement this. And it's like, I just take a step back that some of the things they might be asking us to do would change how our district operates. It affects families and the fact that now we can be charging, you know, families. I don't want to go too deep into just that one, but it's just an example that it could be changing how we do business. And maybe our district, right now, the way we're set up, isn't set up to do business that way. Do we want to be getting into that where we're adding, like already, look at these big reports that our principals have to put together. I mean, our SIPSAs, our LCAP, I mean, these are all regulations that we're imposing upon our people that take hours and hours, and to sift through and to expect everybody to do this, to be held accountable to it. I would just like to be really cautious about what we're adding to our confidential staff, to our principals. Like, what's the workload there? Is it really necessary? Is it something that we really want to take on? So while things seem innocent, maybe, and you know, it's like, oh, well, we're just going to do this program, or but what are we really being asked to do? And so I feel like if we can take all MOUs and grants, whether there's money attached or not, that we have an opportunity to look at it as board members, present it to the public, and really look at, is this something that our district wants to take on? Are parents okay with it? And like some of our grants, they require surveys. Are all parents okay with their kids taking surveys? Like, who gets the data? Where is the data stored? Can somebody hack in and steal that data? So there's just a lot of questions there that I feel like we need to take back a little bit of that control and not just have it be open. So changing our grant policy, not changing, but adding some terminology to include MOUs, I think would be very prudent for this day and age.
I would have Joe add to that, because the MOU is a different process than this. There's a whole business side to that. Joe, you can share a little bit.
Before you do that, Joe, also, if you can clarify which contracts and MOUs come to the board and which ones are under the designated authority of the superintendent, because there's different thresholds.
Yeah, so we just had at our finance committee, we reviewed all the contracts and MOUs that had financial implications. And so we're bringing those to the board annually now. So getting the board, so we first did that, the finance committee will be bringing it back to the board at the next board meeting for approval. So our plan is to bring that once a year. There may be still some contracts or MOUs that take place after the fact, like we may have a contract in February. So we would try to make sure to bring that to the board when that came up. But all other like MOUs or things that aren't necessarily financial, those may be just staff. So, you know, if we're doing a partnership with Sierra College on something that we're working together on, that may not be something that we need to come to the board. And so there are some of those that are just staff functions.
So how do we determine that? Like our MOU with the city of Roseville for SROs and the ones with the counties come to the board for approval. Is that because of dollar amounts? Is that because of functional amounts? What's that threshold?
Yeah, I would say it's just having a dollar amount or a significant dollar amount over about $15,000 is what we generally. But anything else that the staff is like, this is constantly, the board should know about this, that we can bring to the board even if it's less than 15,000.
Thanks. I think that's helpful. And if you remember about 4 years ago, we had a discussion about evergreen contracts and automatic renewals. I think this falls right in with that. There was a process where we'd have contracts that just automatically renewed, and the board said, no, we don't want that. We want to have criteria for renewal for new contracts, things of that nature. So all good points. You were done, I think, right? Did you have anything?
No. So if anyone's ever trying to just give us free grant money without any strings attached, then
It's
go ahead and approve them.
It's the strings that hang in.
Right, yeah.
So, before I sum up, is there anything else that you would like?
No, I agree with points though, so.
So I think at this point, speaking of points, I think we've given our input to the superintendent. I think we would like to hear back on what communication methods you recommend and at what junctures that you recommend bringing them to the board, and taking a look at our policies on MOU thresholds, and analyzing to see where you think we may need to either constrain those or enable, depending on what the spectrum it is, suggestions that you may have. And if there's a board policy that puts those constraints in place, do we need to amend that policy? So I think part of it may be policy related, if we have policies that control those items now. Some may be how you anticipate communicating with the board, and the method of communication and the timing of those communications in relation to different types of grants. And if there are any type of delineation you want to make between grants. So there's competitive grants, and then there's sort of the government funding grants where money is granted to us from DOE to DOE to us, how those may be different, and then sort of bringing that back to the board as an update and seeing if we're all comfortable with that to bless it and have it go forward, or if we want to make any changes. Is that clear to you, Joe? And Joe? Any other input communication methods will the superintendent utilize and at what junctures of the grant process that they would like to establish with the board. Reviewing our MOU thresholds and seeing if they need attention and if they're guided by a specific policy, whether that policy may need to be changed based on the input that we all just gave. And then reporting that back to us as a board to either accept or give further direction. Everything? Everyone good on that? And that we don't have to take any formal action because it's just information and discussion. Now, if there needs to be any changes based, if there's significant policy changes, then I suggest that goes to the Board Policy Review Committee, and they will obviously be aware of this conversation. If it's just minor touch-ups or information, bring it right back to us. Everyone good with that? All right. Almost to our last item, second last item, staff comments. Anything that we would like to catch up on? All right, pending agenda items, reminder, we have holidays coming up, and so we don't have our meeting the week of Thanksgiving that would normally fall. And then we don't have our first meeting in December because we have our organizational meeting, which is the second week of December, I think. So it's a week after we would normally have it, that we'll have our organizational meeting. At that time, we'll do our organizational meeting as far as naming president, clerk, and all those great things. We'll discuss committees, and committee assignments will actually be done at the next following board meeting. That will give whoever is the next board president the opportunity to engage with each of the members on their priorities for board committee assignments. Okay? Anything else? Have a motion to adjourn? Motion
I'll
to adjourn.
second that.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.